Pragmata is a game that has a lot going for it. It's got a cool world, it's visually pleasing, there's a charming connection between the protagonist and the robot girl, it has an atypical save system for something so action-focused, the guns feel really good with a lot of interesting combat options, and Pragmata's hacking system is, as far as I know, a quite unique mechanic. The action is sleek and stylish, the music is energetic, the narrative is pretty decent, the enemy designs are cool, and the game runs very well. I don't typically run big studio releases at 4K, but here I didn't have a problem. Anyone familiar with 2010's Vanquish will immediately see similarities in not just the action, but the visuals. You've got basic melee bots, sniper drones, several types of tanks, fast rolly guys, mid-tier melee soldiers, giant monstrosities, and a decent number of boss fights. The variety is good. All these enemies are super resistant to your guns, which is why you have to use Diana's hacking ability to complete a little puzzle matrix and shut down their defenses. The more nodes you pass through before hitting the activation node, the longer the enemies will be vulnerable. When you hit that perfect hack sequence, adding in a modifier for extra damage or stun, or a multi-hack so several enemies get opened up at once, and then you take them down with your precision shots and a big shotgun blast up close, and everything's blowing up, you get that, yeah, that was cool kind of feeling. It's a fun and fresh mechanic, one that throws in some obstacles later in the game, so it gets trickier. And while I won't say that I got tired of it, I think it's overused. I would have enjoyed some traditional enemies sprinkled in that can be shot without hacking, even if it were kept to a minimum. Having to hack every enemy in every room does get tedious after a while. Once you're very leveled up, you can direct hit someone with a riot splasher to do good damage without hacking, and you have Diana's super move, but that's really all you can do outside of hacking everyone. There are a ton of upgrades and character mods, too much for my taste personally. I prefer something more streamlined like Dead Space, where yeah, I'm upgrading and making choices, but I'm not drowning in 100 different menu choices every 5 minutes. It's not my type of system, but I did allow myself to get into it as much as I could, and I experimented with different mods that worked for my style. I'm a big fan of the mod that spreads critical hit damage to other enemies, and the boomer shooter lover in me can't say no to plus 15% damage when in the air for that jump into shotgun blast. My preferred build centers on getting critical hit insta-kills and building up that enemy heat gauge, so I'm doing a lot of executions and using those iframes. There's just something amazing about spotting that purple critical hit node and tagging it right before you're about to take damage, and then slipping out in the last iframes. But I wish we had more execution animations, it's just the same one over and over. Your character has a good degree of agility, but he's definitely not Iron Man. Certain systems keep your abilities in check, like stamina, so you can't just spam dash constantly until you've invested enough currency to upgrade it to that point. Healing is done in real time and takes a few seconds to complete, so you gotta make sure you're safe to do it. There's no double jump, jumping and floating drains stamina along with dashing. There's a long recovery time from a knockdown until you unlock an ability to help. They keep you somewhat grounded so you're not zipping all around. Diana can get debuffed, which disables hacking. Some enemies can put up shields that make them unhackable, at least somewhat, until you break them. And your primary weapon, while infinite, has a fairly long reload time, so you're essentially forced into using your limited ammo power weapons when the pressure gets turned up. There's a lot of smart stuff going on here, and it's packed into a product that looks good and runs well. So far, it's the best game I've played this year, but it's certainly not without its issues, and that's what we're going to get into here. If you find yourself strongly disagreeing with this stuff, keep in mind that some of it is going to change when we get to talking about the hard difficulty setting later. For now, we're talking about the first playthrough, and that's on normal. Look anywhere that people are discussing Pragmata's gameplay, and the number one issue that comes up is difficulty. Hard mode, called LUNATIC, is locked behind the completion of normal, which is like 15 hours. It's a huge disservice to the interesting game they've made because the vast majority of combat encounters are so easy it's silly. A lot of enemies just slowly walk at you, or hover in one spot. You have weapons that freeze them in place, or knock them down for long periods of time. And most of the combat encounters are incredibly short. The hacking mechanic is super forgiving too. It only resets if you take damage or try to target another enemy. Very quickly, I figured out that I can just do a little of the hacking matrix, run away, do a little more, run away, until it's complete. Because so many of the fights don't pressure you enough to make this unviable. Shouldn't the matrix totally reset if you don't complete it in one go? You know, wouldn't that make it more important to intelligently use your tactical weapons to keep them stunned and to have better positioning and stage awareness? And then eventually you get a mod that lets you preserve the hacking matrix even if you get hit, in case you really want to ignore how the combat was designed. I understand that the way this mechanic works is how they designed late game fights and boss encounters, and yeah, those fights would really suffer if hack preservation didn't work the way it does, so I'm not saying they could just change it, but I wish they'd come up with a better way to do this overall. If you are ever in any danger, the defensive options are so stupidly overpowered that one of the only reasons you could ever die in this game is because you forgot to use them. Trigger a shield, stand inside it, and fully heal with enough time to hack everyone and pick them off. Throw down a decoy and watch everyone attack it while you run away. And you can hold 2 of them! They're some of the craziest get-out-of-jail-free cards I've ever seen, and there are so many found in the maps that you're pretty safe to burn both of your defensive items in every big fight because you'll just get them back in a minute. You don't take a lot of damage, it's easy not to get hit at all, you have utility weapons that lock enemies in place, and there's barely any reason to upgrade your max health at the shelter, so you can just upgrade your combat strength. It's just too easy. It's like they're worried they're gonna scare people off. So you find these save spots in the levels where you head to the shelter to spend your currencies to unlock new abilities, and upgrade weapon damage, hacking specs, and health. I like that this system makes you go back to these points if you die. There's at least some sense of consequence to your death and that it takes time to get back to where you were. You have to go through several fights and survive them all. And you can't save scum it by just running back and saving after each room because they repopulate if you go to the shelter and come back. It's imperfect, but I like the idea. You can actually exploit the upgrade system by revisiting previous areas over and over, killing enemies and opening boxes, but this is somewhat mitigated by the requirement of pure Lunum credits that can only be found in special boxes and in unlocking training missions. So yeah, you could mindlessly grind for hours to get a bunch of XP, but you won't be able to use it all for a long time. Dying sends you back to the shelter, and you can think about putting together another build for taking on a boss or a tough fight. And it reminds me a bit of Armored Core 6, though I like how they do builds and upgrades here a bit more. However, this shelter system, at the same time, tends to handicap the game's challenge by refilling your health to 100, restocking all your healing cartridges, and refilling all of your ammo. So I rarely felt like I was in danger because even if I do take damage in these fights, the next nearby shelter entrance is gonna fix me right up for free. And since I get all my ammo back, it was really easy to just get comfortable with one loadout and tactic, upgrade it, and tackle every fight the same way with little need to experiment. Yes, occasionally I ran out and had to use another gun, but 90% of the time I'm just using the same stuff. Maybe you'll run out of shotgun and charge piercer after a big fight, but hey, just go to the next shelter and get it all back. It reminds me of Halo Infinite. You know how part of the fun of Halo is needing to pick up other weapons around the combat spaces because you run out of ammo and have to adapt? Remember how Halo Infinite ruined that by allowing you to just spawn in whatever weapons you want before every mission and then keep refilling ammo for those weapons at ammo stations? It allowed for total homogenization of gameplay. You could approach every mission the same way. I feel like that's happening in Pragmata too, and I'm sure it didn't just happen to me. I'll bet there's a good chance that you went back to the shelter every time and just reloaded your last loadout because that's what you spec'd into. That's what works. If they had something in place to stop you, or at least tone down how much you can infinitely restock your favorite weapons, it would force you to experiment with and rely on more weapon types around the combat rooms, which would then incentivize you to upgrade those weapons instead of just immediately maxing out the 2 you're most comfortable with. I don't know if they could have fixed this by having fewer shelter points, or limiting their use, or charging some currency to restock your loadout, but in the current state, I think giving you everything for free destroys a lot of the resource management that could have made for interesting decision making. And because you're always stocked on health and ammo, and the fights are so easy, the game has to rely on constantly throwing loot at you to keep you entertained. Not since God of War 2018 have I played a game where so many treasures and currencies were flying in my face. I felt like I was being tricked into thinking this was fun. I was getting dopamine hits from opening mystery boxes around the map, instead of finding satisfaction in narrow victories and the mechanics the game was built on. But I did enjoy exploring and discovering new stuff. I was fine with revealing pickups on the map because the fun was in finding how to get there. It made for good pacing. I went back into previous levels with new abilities to try to find as much stuff as possible so I could further upgrade my gear. I liked solving the occasional hacking puzzle, and there's some well-implemented platforming. Stringing traversal options together is fun. Breaking stuff, hacking, dashing, flying up a wall, it's amusing. I played most of the training missions and went for the highest scores, and with the action being as explosive and smooth as it is, even with it being easy, I still had a good enough time to push through to the end. I unlocked Lunatic mode, and boy oh boy is this a disappointment. You get access to lots of weapons and upgrades early on, okay, but there doesn't seem to be much difference in enemy speed, if there is any at all. Fights don't have more waves, and while there may be some changes to enemy aggression and a few enemies might show up in new places here and there, it's not much to be very noticeable. It's mostly just higher enemy health and a lot more damage to you. You die fast and they don't. It doesn't do anything to fix the majority of encounters where the enemies simply can't keep up with your power. The only challenging moments in the first few maps are the fights where you run out of ammo because they're so tanky now, and you end up running around the room with no bullets except for your dinky pistol. Not fun. It gets better later, but those first maps have some fights that really drag. Boss fights are definitely tougher, that was nice to see. That scorpion kicked my ass for a good while, as did the final boss. And yeah, there are some really good fights sprinkled across the game on Lunatic. They were great. It's just not enough, especially since a full run on normal got me so familiar with the combat that I was just running circles around everyone. If Lunatic had been available to select at the beginning, as it should have been, I think I and a lot of other critics would be gushing over Pragmata and how great the first playthrough was. Let's roll back a few minutes to when I said, if you are ever in any danger, the defensive options are so stupidly overpowered that one of the only reasons you could ever die in this game is because you forgot to use them. Right, I said one of, because there are two other reasons you'll die in this game. Number 2 is the targeting issues while hacking. Yes, this game has a targeting problem, you can't tell me otherwise. I'll show you. Watch me target this guy. See? Not targeted. It can certainly be tricky to judge exactly where the targeting cutoff distance is, and I'm using the distance extender mod. If you're aiming at someone just outside the distance, well, the game is simply going to target the nearest enemy, even if you're not even close to looking at them. They can be all the way to the edge of the screen, 10 feet away from your target, or totally obscured by your character on the left side, and the game will just decide to hack them instead. It all happens so fast that before you know it, you've wasted your valuable freeze node or whatever on that little bitch enemy that wasn't even a threat. I'd rather the game just not target anyone at all if I'm not even remotely aiming at them. If you start targeting them when they're just out of range and then you step into range, the game will not target them because it's already locked onto this other guy to the right. It's so awkward. It's hard to notice this is happening in the moment because the action and effects are so crazy and flashy. You think you've hacked someone, and by the time you realize you haven't, it's too late. And the other reason you'll die is because the inputs are fucked. Oh, I'm getting tired of this. Okay, time to put on my playtester hat and walk you through what's happening here. And I'll bet what I'm about to say is gonna clear something up for a bunch of you. Doesn't it feel like Pragmata just doesn't do what you tell it to sometimes, particularly when you're shooting? Two things, firing buffer and weapon class switch. First, the firing buffer. In a shooting game, if you're holding the fire button and you switch to another weapon, namely one with automatic fire or a charging ability, you expect that gun to go active as soon as it comes out, because you're already holding the fire button. Here's that working in a few other shooting games. I'm just holding the fire button and then I press the other weapon. Here's what happens in Pragmata. Nothing. A little light just went off in some of your heads, didn't it? So that's why I was just standing there not shooting. Yeah, let's say you're shooting the automatic carbine, and then you switch to the charge piercer expecting it to charge. Doesn't work. You stand there holding the button, thinking it's charging, but it's not. You have to let go of the fire button and hit it again. By that time, you've already missed your opportunity for the shot. If you're firing the photon laser and switch to the carbine, doesn't work. You stand there with the carbine not firing. You have to release the button first. And you might say, okay, fine, that's just how the game is, even if it doesn't feel good. Well, no. Look what happens when you climb a ledge while holding fire. The gun fires instantly after the animation ends, even if the ledge climb interrupts a previous firing animation. This also applies to commands outside of combat. If you're holding the hack button and you fail a hack matrix, it will come back up on the first available frame if you keep holding it. You don't have to repress the button. You only have to do that when switching weapons, so the firing input buffer is inconsistently applied. The other issue is how you switch weapon types. Since you have two guns in the left and right classes, you can switch between them. In this example, if I'm holding the pistol and I want the shotgun, I press the left weapon class key once. If I'm holding the pistol and I want the charge piercer instead, I press the key twice. Simple enough. But if I'm already holding the shotgun, wouldn't you think that pressing the weapon key once would go right to the charge piercer, since I'm already using this weapon class? Well, no, it doesn't. That just brings up the class selection highlight, and then you have to press the key again to switch within that class. It's so awkward and wrong. Even if I'm already firing the shotgun, I have to press the weapon class key twice to pull out the other weapon, the same amount of times I would have to press it if I were firing a weapon of a different class. And it's not like this number of presses is specific to one weapon slot inside of a class. No, if I have the other weapon equipped, now the double button tap applies to the first one. Jesus Christ, this is frustrating. The game is targeting enemies I'm not looking at, the guns aren't shooting even though I'm holding shoot, and I can't switch to the other gun in the class I'm holding by just pressing the class key once like I should. I end up holding a gun I never wanted to use and it's not firing anyway. You've also probably noticed it can be hard to pick up weapons and hacks when running over them, so you'd better slow down first to grab it, which isn't good in moments when you're fleeing for your life and you desperately need that shotgun. It's also pretty hard to tell which weapon is which in the moment. They're all long rifle-looking things, and they're boldly colored to the weapon class they belong to. So I just see a bunch of red and green weapons that look similar, and when things are chaotic, hell, even when they're not, I don't know what I'm even running over to pick up. The last gameplay issue I'll bring up is hack stacking. It doesn't exist, and I struggle to see why not. Look, if you're low on shotgun ammo and you need more, you just grab another one and it transfers the ammo to you. But hacks don't work that way. I can hold a max of 2 multi-hacks per slot. If I only have one and then I go to pick up another single multi-hack, they take up 2 slots. Why are these not stacking into the same slot? Please, someone explain why it works like this. As for the story of Pragmata, it's fine. I like how it wraps up, Diana's fascination with human life is cute, and there's a solid emotional core to the Doctor's story that gets unveiled as time goes on. But there was also nothing particularly surprising, and way too much of the story is left up to note reading. There's also no conflict between the main characters, as they're just buddy-buddy the whole time. And the acting is kinda weak. Hugh just sounds like stock male voice, and I don't find him endearing after seeing him not give 2 shits about the death of his partners in the beginning, referring to them simply as the crew.
You alright here? Yeah, we're a crew.
Diana is alright, she's charming, but her ultra-superficial baby voice done by an adult actor works against any connection I could have formed.
REMs are pretty weird, don't you think?
What do you mean?
Everything we need is already at the cradle, so why do we need Earth stuff? Yeah, we'll go, and if you don't get hurt, that means it's safe. Let's go!
Remember when they replaced the child actor voice work for Silent Hill 2 with an adult pretending to be a child for the 2012 remaster? Yeah, it sounds like that. And I want to make it clear, I don't hate Diana the way I hate Atreus. He was a whiny, entitled brat. Diana is just innocent and naive, like Johnny 5. But Johnny 5 feels a lot more authentic because it's not an adult woman pretending to be 6. She does, however, do the Atreus thing of constantly yelling at you during combat, telling you what threats are coming at you if you need to heal, telling you about boss behaviors when you don't want to know them. That's pretty annoying.
Look out! Arms incoming!
What?
Something's aiming at us.
Look out! Behind you! Find a healing stone. And he never f***ing stops. His voice enters your brain like a parasite, and you start playing sloppier because you're annoyed by him on top of the awful, boring combat. On my first playthrough, I was playing on hard, so I was having to repeat a lot of fights in the early game, and his complaining was so annoying that before every fight, I had to go into the option menu, turn the dialogue volume all the way down just so I could fight in peace. And then, after the fight, go back to the menu, turn it back up so I don't miss the story, because Kratos and Atreus talk all the f***ing time about dumb shit that I don't care about. I don't like you, kid! Go away! For the love of God, Santa Monica Studios, please give us a patch with a separate option to mute the boy during combat.
Yeah,
It's not.
I had to pull dinner out of the oven. I didn't mean to let that run for so long. And here's a tip for when you replay the game on Lunatic. Just turn the dialogue off. It's a quiet and peaceful experience. I don't think I have any more to say about Pragmata. I've gone in pretty hard on a bunch of criticisms, but let this be a lesson that you can be very critical of a piece of media and still really like it. I wouldn't have played all the way through Lunatic if I didn't like the game. I wouldn't have gone back into completed maps to try to find all the hidden stuff if I weren't enjoying it. When the action is good, it's really good. Even when it's easy, it still feels great. And this is probably one of my favorite shotguns ever. All the weapons are pretty damn cool, actually. Pragmata is a game that makes me want a sequel desperately. The gameplay they've crafted here shows so much potential. Hell, I'd like to see the hacking stuff get adopted by some other games, because it's pretty fun. Okay everyone, thanks for watching. If you'd like to support my work, your contributions on Patreon help me maintain my independence. See you in the comments section arguing about something.